All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Mile 17 podcast. I have JUMER here with me. I am super excited to have this conversation. I actually started following JUMER on Instagram, and I love your platform. I'm so excited that you're here. So why don't you just introduce yourself to everybody here and kind of tell us what growing up was like for you and where you're from and where you're at now.
Colton, thank you so much for having me. I am truly grateful for this opportunity that you've given me. And I actually have been um, listening to you in the past couple of episodes that you've had, and it's just like really a breath of fresh air to be able to get on a podcast that's not all about business or all about, personal branding and all that stuff. So I'm
Right,
really
right.
excited to be here. Growing up for me, back in the Philippines, I was born and raised in the Philippines. I moved here when I was
Nice.
19. And growing up, it was a pretty religious, devout Catholic household. And so
Okay,
imagine a little boy just, trying to hide and build this persona outside of um, what my parents and, the rest of my family know.
sure.
It has been a difficult detach like trying to detach from that growing up. And so the last decade, I would say, has been just really full of growth, and this journey has been like it's something that I wouldn't have it any other way, because it's truly transformed me into, I would say, my ultimate to this day.
Nice. Did your parents like come over to the States with you, or did you come as an adult by yourself, or did you all kind of like come over as a family?
So the way it works is that family members petition you. So it was my brother and my sister-in-law that moved here first, and then moved my mom, and then my mom took me. And so I
Okay.
was 19 at the time. I was finishing nursing school, and then it was just about time for me to sit for the NCLEX, and then I became a nurse, and here we are.
So you did nursing school in the Philippines and then
Hmm.
started your career here in the States. Nice. Wow. That's
Yeah,
a pretty interesting path. Yeah, I feel like
it's a
that's not
nice way
super.
to save money as well.
Yeah, so much cheaper, I'm sure, in the
Yeah,
Philippines. Yeah.
absolutely.
Nice. That's awesome. So when you got into nursing, what kind of nursing were you doing?
So when I started out, right off the bat, I couldn't get a job. I had to sit for like one or two more exams back in Wisconsin, and they had this other credentialing um, body. It's called CGFNS, Commission for Graduates of Foreign Nursing Schools, or something
Okay.
like that. And so I had
Gotcha.
to take that exam, an English exam, and then once I got those, I sat for the NCLEX. But in that time, I was a CNA in a nursing home, and then I got licensed. I sat for the NCLEX. I got absorbed as an RN in that nursing home, and then stayed there for maybe a year, and then I was looking for jobs in the hospital, and it was a tough time because I didn't really have, at the time back then, people were just like, if you don't have any acute care experience, I can't really hire
Right.
you. And
It's a little harder. Yeah.
nursing homes experience don't really get you anywhere. But now
Right.
it's like they drop at your door.
Yeah, you can walk in anywhere and, yeah, pretty much find a
Yeah.
job. Yeah. I mean, let's just take a second to acknowledge how hard the work is in a nursing home, though. I worked in a nursing home for like 6 months when I was like 17, 18. I think actually I had just turned 18. I was still in high school. One of the hardest jobs in my life. I was like, I will never do this again. It is
No one's
so
gonna
hard.
understand. Yes, like med pass for like 40 people, and that's just one wing, and then you have another one, and then you have
Right.
wound treatments, and I'm like, how did I do this?
Yeah.
How did I get through this? It's
Yeah.
like,
Well,
like,
I didn't even do it as a nurse. I was only a CNA when I had done it. So I can't even
wow.
imagine like the nursing side, like it just all like the whole environment was just like so difficult. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So then from there you finally got a job in a hospital.
Yeah. So I was looking around, and there wasn't anything down in Madison, like within the city in Wisconsin. And so I was looking around, and I found one that's outside of the hospital. I spent a year there, and I was like, I just need to get a year from here, in this hospital. And then that's when I moved to Austin in Texas, where I met my
Oh,
husband.
nice.
And
Okay.
yeah, I got a job in a CVICU at night, which I'm very thankful for, because I feel like
Yeah.
I would probably be eaten alive if I started on days.
Right.
Um, and that just like I just fell in love with critical care from there. And yeah.
Nice. So CVICU, and you were doing night shift. I think when my very first nursing job, I somehow
Mhm.
landed a day shift position as a new grad, and I'm so
Yeah.
thankful for that because the night shift is not for me. I actually just my contract that I'm on right now is technically rotating because they do that a lot out here
Mhm.
on the East Coast. They rotate, and I've never had to rotate, but for my next schedule, I'm on nights, and I am like unwell about it already.
I need a nap.
Yeah, I already need a nap,
Yeah.
yes. So from when you got this, like, first nursing job to kinda now, can you explain to us, like, how has your perspective shifted on just nursing and, like, kind of, like, what you originally thought were gonna be your career goals to now what you're thinking that you kinda wanna do or what you're currently doing? Like, how has that shifted for you?
Well, I think it all comes down to like, did I first pick nursing? I feel like, I was born into a family of nurses. Like everyone around me was a nurse, and it was just, second nature, or like it was inevitable that I was going to become one. And so it wasn't really my choice. And I kind of fell in love with it. Like I saw how it pulled my family from like, a difficult financial situation, been able to work abroad and save and live the American dream. I saw how that impact has been made for everyone, including me. And so thinking about like, okay, this might not be my first choice, but I do have the opportunity and to leverage my income to pursue something
Right,
outside of that. Or better yet, do two things at once, which is being a content creator and being a nurse. And so for me at this point and stage in my life, like a lot of people like, we see a lot of people online, that post about they're so burned out with nursing and they just want to leave the
right,
workforce. But I feel like because nursing has is so multidimensional, and you have as a nurse so many transferable skills, the possibilities are endless. Like it's not the be all end all to work in an ICU or to work in a highly specialized, stressful environment where you feel like, it's sucking the life out of you, because before you know it, years have gone by and you're in the same place because you got so comfortable and you got so
right,
used to it.
right, and I think a lot of us, like, when we're at least for me, when I was in nursing school,
Mhm.
like, it was like everybody like the options were pretty much like, are you gonna go to the emergency department? Are you gonna go to the ICU? Like there were very few people who were comfortable with just being like, "Nah, I don't want to do any of that, like I
Yeah.
want to do this." And so I think once you get to like you're in that critical role or that critical care role and you've learned all these things, you have these skills
Mhm.
that it's for me, it's almost like I feel guilty if I leave, or I'm like, how could I like leave the bedside and not, you know,
Mhm.
be here like with my coworkers and my colleagues and, putting my knowledge and skills, helping people day to day in the hospital. But something that I'm trying to learn, and I think that maybe you've learned this already since you kind of got out of it, is like you have to be able to put yourself first and to
Mhm.
like realize like, okay, like the burnout and the way that I'm feeling is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And if I'm just doing this because of the identity that I've attached to the fact that I'm an ICU nurse or an ER nurse.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's just like a dangerous spot to be.
Yeah. Like when I was precepting a lot of new grads into the ICU, like, they're almost done with school. And then a lot of them are, well, I just want to get into an ICU or an ED. And I'm like, you don't really have to do it just because your best friend is
Right.
doing it. Like
Right.
the pressure of it all, like when you get there and it's gonna be like something that you're not expecting, and then, you feel let down because that was your one and only thing. Then you put your
Right.
eggs all in one basket, and then once it falls apart. And then also like it's so multifaceted that it's not just like because the job is stressful. It also depends on like what kind of preceptor you had. Do
Sure.
you have a supportive working environment? And really having like a mentor that you can always come back to, like even if you're off orientation, really makes a big deal
Huge,
for
huge
success.
difference. Huge difference. My actually she's like my absolute best friend to this day was my preceptor I was a caps like my capstone when I was a student,
Yeah.
and she ended up getting me my first job on that unit, and then she went to the emergency department, and that's ultimately like what I wanted, and then
Mhm.
so then she got me the job down in the emergency department as well. um
Two things.
yeah, and like I said,
Yeah.
like to this day, like she's still like one of like my very best friends.
I
So I
love
think, yeah,
that.
yeah, what you're
Yeah.
saying about like that mentorship is just like, oh my god, it's so important
Yeah.
and so vital.
And sometimes, like, when you see something or someone new and you see yourself in them somehow, and you wish the way you would teach sometimes could be from a place of, I wish somebody had taught me this when I first started, or so I wish somebody had treated me this way when I started. And so it's an opportunity for you to be able to give yourself that gift by teaching somebody else.
Right. No, I totally agree. When did you start feeling like that burnout, or when did you start feeling that moment where like something needs to change, and like I need to start like dipping my toes in something else and like maybe getting into like what you're doing now?
Right. So I knew school wasn't for me. I've seen it a lot, where they've had like either CRNA or NP school. It's just not for me. Like
Hmm.
it's just not for me, and I've
Yeah.
come to terms with that very very like deep into my career a long time ago. And
Yeah.
so I knew that I loved teaching, but I also did not want to teach in the academe. Um, but the moment where I knew that it was time for a change was when I was taking it out on my husband, when my personal relationships were suffering, and like, the anger and the resentment, and people don't understand what I was going through at work during the pandemic really, really shattered me. And so like a lot of um, resources that we now have, like say for instance, debriefing the front lines, like I wish I had known about them so I could easily transition, or get some help in um, separating that identity that I have accrued throughout 10 years of being an ICU nurse,
Yeah.
because it's absolutely difficult. And once I broke chains from that whole identity, I was like, I have been waiting for so long to be able to get out of my comfort zone and pursue things that are, bigger than my nursing license, I guess.
Sure. Sure. How I mean, so how did you get to that point though, to where you were like, this
Mhm.
I am not an ICU nurse, like, and that is just a, it's just what I do. Like I am, I am Joomer. I like
Yeah,
XYZ. This is
yeah.
just part of what I do for work to make money. Um, like how did you separate yourself from like that identity?
To be honest, I don't know. I think
Okay.
it took a lot of time and just, finally sitting with a feeling of, I knew I'm meant for more, and this is not lighting up anything inside of me
Sure.
anymore. And I wanted to feel that again. And so when I became a PICC nurse and I finally had the time to really sit with my emotions and my feelings, and what is it that I really want out of life in general, and the impact that I want to make, it wasn't going to be in the hospital. It wasn't just going to be confined in a unit where I'm doing, on the spot, like, what do you call those? In service, or like quick audit or whatever. I knew there's got to be a better way to be able
Sure.
to creatively express myself.
Sure. It sounds like you're very self-aware, and I think that's amazing to like get you out of this, like sounds like you were on this hamster wheel of just
Mhm.
feeling unwell and just like in this career that just was not doing it for you. Um so how did you get into like social media? Like how did you like was it did you just like fall into it, or did you like have this plan from the beginning, like yeah, this is what I'm going to do, or did you just start posting things to see what would happen?
So, long story short, like couple years ago, I wanted to be a travel lifestyle influencer, and that whole
Amazing.
thing fell apart. Yeah, I know. 2017, teal and orange overlays on Instagram was my era. Like
Yeah.
I sold those presets, and so, like I didn't know what I was doing, and it was hard to make it out back then as a content creator, because there weren't a lot of resources, and the people that did it were, didn't necessarily teach. Like you could just see them do it. So then we were, I was probably just mimicking them, and it didn't really sit well with me that I couldn't come up with my own thing, and
Right.
especially a strategy that'll help me stay in the long game. And so I was burned out. Because I had no real reason why I'm sharing this. Like I just wanted to do it for the likes, views, and all of that.
Right.
And then I saw myself having this like chasing the virality moment,
Yeah.
and it was exhausting because my self worth at the time was dependent on how
Right.
much visibility I was getting, and I did not like that. And so I stepped away for a little bit, and then the pandemic happened, and I started a plant account. I
Oh
at
yeah.
one point I had 300 houseplants in the tiny home that we had during the pandemic.
That's awesome.
And it was funny because sometimes it was like I've had so much, and I spent a lot of money, of course.
Yeah.
Um, I had so much that it was either a choice of eating or showering.
Oh my
Like, are
god.
you gonna eat today or are you gonna shower? Like,
Right.
either which way are you going? And it was just like it got to a point where it was like, oh my gosh, this is so much. So then I turned that into sort of like a side hustle where I was making good money because like back at the time the prices of the plants were like crazy. Like they
Yeah.
could go upwards of like 500, even 1,000. And if you like sold a cutting, you could sell like maybe like 500, 250. And
You
so
were
I
selling the
made,
plants?
yes. And it was like, and there was,
Wow.
it's Houston Plant Market. And so on every other Sunday, we would go out to this like little, like, how do you say it? It's like a plant market. And so we would
Right.
go out and we would like trade plants or sell plants or like buy plants from this market. And we're just
Awesome.
like a plant addict. And so I
Right.
saw the entrepreneurial, like, possibility of it.
Sure.
And I did that for a while. And so again, I did social media at the time without any rhyme or reason, without any strategy, without any
Right.
plan, direction, or vision. And it burned out completely again. And I gave it time again. And I tried one more time, and here we are. And so I've been able to build a community on Instagram of over 50,000. Well, I'm losing some now because I'm coming to terms that for me to truly show up as a personal brand that I want it to be, I'm going to have to be as more authentic, which includes, showing the parts that I thought I wasn't supposed to share now, now I'm sharing, which includes my personal life and my
Right.
husband in the picture. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, and I am
Sure.
okay with
Right.
that.
Let them go. Open the door for them. Yeah. That's awesome. So, yeah, explain to people like what is your platform? Like, what is your vision for this? Like, what do you try to achieve with like the platform that you have right now?
Yeah, so I just finished my program. It's called Scrubs Social Academy. But my ultimate mission is to be able to help nurses realize their full potential, especially creative nurses, to be able to leverage content to share their stories, to increase their visibility and grow their audience using social media in ways that because a lot of us we start out working just like me, just like you work full time, and a lot of us feel like, I personally used to feel like I have to water down what I say online because I have such and such job.
Right.
And because of that, a lot of us fade into the background. But there are a lot of ways to be able to show up with, what your brand principles and values are without compromising who you are as a person and as a personal brand. And so that's what I help with is content strategy and personal branding in order for you to completely thrive online because you're in it for the long game.
So this is like a program that you put people through. Is this like one-on-one coaching you do, or do you just
Yeah.
do like you have like a class people can kind of like go through and see like what you're offering, or how does it work?
So the founding students had the best of both worlds of having sort of like a group coaching program, and then it's also an online course. But because it's a like a founding member thing, I wanted to be able to truly give them the best like close proximity experience with me. But I'm hoping to turn it into like a course, a standalone course where people can like access on demand. But I think I'm gonna launch again with that little bit of group coaching and like more access to me, so I can truly understand and really make it a better experience for everyone who's coming into my world and wanting a piece of what I have to share.
Okay. Is this just nurses, or do you kind of branch out?
So it's just nurses for now. And I
Okay.
think it's going to be nurses for a little bit more because I have seen like the transformation from a lot of my students that have been with me in this program that the gap that I feel is truly something that, because you are a nurse and you truly are an expert at what you do, what happens is that it's difficult to translate that online. It's difficult
Sure.
to step out of that identity of like going the education route because it is comfortable. What is familiar to us. Like you do in services, you get, you do modules at work. Like it's so easy for us to educate patients, family, members. But in social media, you need to do more than that. You need to, like, the education isn't going to cut out,
Right.
anymore.
There has to be like another like other like it has to be like multi-layered as far as
Yeah,
like yeah.
yeah.
What do you see like the biggest mistake people make like when they come to you is like when they're so frustrated as to like why can't I get followers? Why can't like I get to the next level? Like what are you finding that people like consistently have like the same issue or do you feel like it's just like all over the place?
In terms of like growth, I really think that it all comes down to consistency. And
Mm,
that just means that you have to establish sort of like uh, an expectation either for your audience of how you're going to show up, either the frequency of how many times you're going to do it per week or a month, and for yourself. Because a lot of people want to show up like go hard at it, like right away. They want to post every day for 30 days. And guess what? After 30 days, you're burnt out
mhm.
because you rode that momentum without, maybe a strategy in place. And so once that momentum is gone, you don't want to do it again.
Right.
And so that's where I come in is really um, help you discover what that expectation should be for you and your audience and what works for you in your schedule in your personal life because it's a multifaceted, like you said, it's a
Sure.
multifaceted thing. It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to post educational content, but then no one really just wants to go on Instagram to be educated.
Right.
We either want to be educated, to be entertained, to be
Right.
inspired, to feel something, to change that mindset. And people will literally pay attention to either changing their mindset or getting results,
Right.
quick wins.
Right. I think what you said earlier kind of like makes most sense to me is like finding like if you don't have like a good why or a good purpose
Mhm.
behind what you're doing, I feel like that's the fastest way to burning out
Yeah.
with a lot of things really. But
Mhm.
especially what I've noticed just with like the things I've been doing on social media is like if I because I think we all have gotten into that hamster wheel of like posting for the views, for the likes, for
Yeah.
because it's like a dopamine hit when you first
Yeah.
start getting those things.
It's
Like you're
human
like, oh, this is it's like
nature.
addicting, yeah. Like you're
Yeah.
like, oh, how can I do this again? And then you start posting things that aren't really authentic to you just so that people will
Mhm.
get you noticed and then that's what burns you out because you're not that's not sustainable like you can't just keep showing up as someone that you're not or like putting these things
Right.
out there that like don't actually matter to you even
Yeah.
if like you're getting like the likes and the views but yeah I can see how it's like so addicting for people
Oh, yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just
for
that yeah
sure. And no one tells you about it. Like a
right
lot of like the programs out there that I've looked at, I'm like, what can I truly, like inject in my own that will be able to push whoever comes into my world into like a better like mindset. And so part of it is like navigating negativity in social media, like what consequences happen when you go viral. Like people start attacking you for whatever
everything
reason,
everything
completely unrelated to the content,
everything yeah
and no one prepares you for it. And then a
right
lot of us like deal with it in silence. And so that I think that's just not right. Like,
right
I mean, it's an open and free space, but the keyboard
sure
warriors will fight.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you're not like prepared. Like you'll get on there and you'll start reading things that people say.
Mhm,
Like, oh my
mhm.
god, is that like what everyone's thinking when they're looking at me or when
Yeah.
they hear me? And yeah, if you're not prepared and you're not
Yeah.
like like secure enough with just who
Mhm.
you are, like it can be a little bit of a slippery slope.
Mhm.
Do you mind, Jim, just kind of explaining to everybody listening, like what is kind of going back? You said you're a PICC nurse.
Yeah.
What is that? Like some people may not know at all, like what a PICC even is. So kind of just like
Yeah.
explain how you got into that role and like what you do on a day to day basis.
So I'm a full-time PIC nurse. I work in a large teaching hospital. We've got about 5 buildings, and so we have to service that entire facility. And so we're inpatient PIC nurses are nurses that place intravenous lines that will enable you to get medications, strong medications, IV nutrition, um, and it can draw blood without having to stick you over and over again. So it's like a one-stop shop. It's an all-in-one, and that is my responsibility as a PICC nurse. I am certified essentially to place these lines. You have to be credentialed, and so the workflow looks like going everywhere basically in the hospital, especially to the sickest patients in the ICU. And we place these lines. And so what it looks like for me is a lot of screening, looking at patient charts and focused assessment, completely different from my ICU background where you're doing a head to toe assessment and really being thorough. But here it's like, 30 minutes to an hour of a procedure and you churn patients back to back. I mean, like that fast paced aspect of it
That's why I love the
because,
ER. The ER is
yeah,
just yeah.
yeah, because you talk to different people, you never know who you're going to have. And, but they don't have an option. They have to choose you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So what did you find? How did you like find that job? Like how was from going like from the ICU to
Mhm.
like the PIC team, like what was your motivation behind that? Like how did you get into that role?
So when I got into this last hospital that I've worked in, um, I had a colleague. She's now my colleague. We were at the same hospital orientation, and I was orienting for a cardiac ICU job, and she was being oriented for a PIC nurse job, and I was like, "What is that?" And so we've kept in touch for a couple years, and then one day during the pandemic, she texted me and she was like, "Hey, we have a PIC nurse job opening," and I was like, "Sign
Like
me up."
yes. Yeah.
And
Yes.
I was editing my resume at the nurse's
As
station and submitted it.
as we all do.
And here we are. Yeah. And I have never looked back. Like I may have picked up like one or two shifts, but I was like, nope.
Nope.
The
Good.
the IV pumps are traumatizing enough. Like it was like it got to the point where even IV pumps like triggered the hell out of me.
Were you like did
Yeah,
COVID push you over the edge? Like were you already
it
feeling like
absolutely did.
it did. It
Yeah,
was like
it
you were
did.
like were
Yeah.
you feeling burnt out before COVID or like maybe you just didn't
Oh
realize and
no.
COVID just like surfaced it or was
Yeah.
COVID just like I'm done? Like,
I I honestly loved working cardiac ICU,
mhm.
which I've spent a lot of my time in this hospital. Um, I loved it. I really loved it. We were doing balloon pumps, impellas, all of the things, and then we became an overflow of COVID ICU, and so we had a lot of ECMO, COVID ECMO, and that
It's
was
a lot.
I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't prepared for any of that. I don't think anyone was prepared for any of
No.
that.
No.
But personally, that was it. That's what pushed me over. And um, I don't think I was burnt out prior to COVID either. I think that I was truly just enjoying, being an ICU nurse.
Sure. Yeah.
And when that opportunity, showed up, I just grabbed it.
Nice. I think like what I've learned from just COVID and just talking to other
Mhm.
nurses after the fact now is that I think a lot of the majority of nurses really felt like the impact from COVID and the burnout and just like dealing with all the emotions and feelings. But like a lot of us were just holding it in because I think we were all just trying to get through it like one day at a time and like again not like leave everybody behind and like seek new ventures. Um, so I mean, I'm so glad that you were able to like get out of that and get somewhere that like made like your mental health better and that you like
Yeah.
made a decision for you. Was it so how have you did you start doing pics it was during COVID or was it after?
It was 2021 when I got the job.
Okay.
So yeah.
So yeah, kind of in it. Yeah. How like
Yeah.
what's your advice for um nurses that are experienced that may be working in the ICU or maybe working in
Yeah.
like other departments that are like wanting to get out or wanting to seek other ventures but are just like maybe scared or have that fear like what would you tell them?
Consider what it's going to be for you in the long run. Like, are you going to choose something that looks good on paper Or are you going to choose something that will make you feel good in the long run, like AKA your mental health, your body? um, I've lost some friends during COVID as well. And so that opened up my eyes to like life is super short. Like
Right.
it, the a lifetime could feel like a literal blink of your
Right.
eye,
Right.
and it could be it's very short. And so for me, I like if not now, then when? Like for a lot of things. If not now, then when do I? I've always wanted to be a content creator. I've always wanted to um, create something that's bigger than my nursing license. I've always wanted to pursue other things that I didn't see anyone who looked like me and sounded like me be able to do. And so I wanted to become that. And I'm just so glad that even though I, like loved being a nurse in a sense that, I'm helping people both now in different capacities as a nurse and as a content creator, like I still have the opportunity to be able to inspire, even if I'm not just doing, being a PICC nurse, being a
Right.
nurse.
Right.
Uh, yeah.
That's honestly that's such a great answer because what you're saying is so true. Like a lot of us will make those decisions like when this happens, then I'll make this decision. But then it's
Yeah.
like you don't know if that when will ever
The
even happen.
readiness.
So
Yeah. If you're waiting
yeah,
to be ready, you're never going to feel ready.
no,
No
because
one ever yeah.
it's always gonna feel uncomfortable. It's always gonna feel scary. And you're always gonna have doubts and you're never gonna be for sure like what if the decision you make is gonna be, the quote unquote right decision.
Correct.
So that's so great. I love just like seeing people like you being able to just like get out of that and just like see like a new horizon and like it's so awesome just to see you like thriving and like this new thing that you're doing. I mean, I didn't know you before. I didn't know you as like an ICU nurse, but it seems very obvious that you were struggling during that time, and it's amazing that you were able to kind of get yourself to the other side of that. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. It comes with the feeling. Sometimes I do feel guilty though, because I still have a lot of close friends that, work in the ICU. And so when I put out content that might feel like, um, triggering to them, like leaving the ICU or detaching yourself from the identity of being a nurse and going for things that are beyond your license, like I feel like sometimes because I'm afraid of like shaking the boat or rocking the boat, I have to water down what I say. But again, at the end of the day, when somebody or you or anyone else who wants to put out content out there wants to post content, it's usually not because you want to shit on someone. It's
Right.
usually not because you want to just ruin their day, with something that you have to say. It's usually because you want to help them with your content, to shift their mindset, their belief that if you're able to do it, as cliche as it sounds, anyone else can do it.
Right. And I think when people feel triggered by things like that, like it's just holding a mirror up to themselves as
Yeah.
to why they're feeling that way.
Yeah.
And even if they don't realize it in the moment, and everybody has like a different story, different journey.
Mhm.
I think that it is just like a direct reflection as to, it maybe it's envy or just maybe it's like, they wish they could have the courage just to like leave what they're doing to pursue something that's like bigger because I think that I really think that's the biggest thing is how scary it is. And I think for nurses, like we were, I don't know how like the nursing programs were in the Philippines, but like we didn't, they didn't talk to us about like other options. Like we didn't have these talks about what a pick nurse was,
Yeah.
or, like we just didn't have that. And I had the opportunity last week to sit on like a Zoom panel with one of the universities here for like the nursing students, and just like they just like had questions, and they were all so fascinated with travel nursing because technically I am a
Yeah.
travel nurse.
Yeah.
I'm local to Boston, but like I've been at the same hospital for a year and a half. Like technically I'm traveling,
Yeah.
and I just remember being in that moment in nursing school and being like so like fascinated with the idea of travel nursing as well. And so I think like what I'm trying to say is like I just think that like when you're in school, like you have like you're so narrow minded because like that's all they give you is like all you do is hospital work, and you're like, this is all I can do. Everyone, the cliche, like, go to med surge first, get your
Yeah.
foundation, then go to the ICU or the
Oh
ER.
my
And it's
gosh.
just like, and that's what I did. But
It No, I don't think, well, I firmly believe that any kind of school, any kind of university or like degree really just teaches you the skills and the discipline that you need for like the real world. I don't think it teaches you how to thrive in like all of it. Like you, like in nursing especially, like you learn everything on the job basically.
oh,
But like,
for sure.
like learning the theory, which oh my gosh, could be another topic on its own.
Yeah.
The theory, sure, it just helps you ingrain that in you. So then when you're in practice, you can always come back to it. But like the real life skills that you need, definitely on
Yeah.
the job to learn.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything is on the job. What do you do? So when you're like not in the hospital, like what do you
Yeah.
do on a day-to-day basis? Like what's your like what are your hobbies? What are you up to? You said you're married. Do you guys
Yeah.
travel a lot? Like what's Jumer do when he's not a nurse and content creating?
Yeah, I we do travel a lot. But when I started this business, I was like, and my husband's now in school, well, in grad school, and so it was like the perfect timing because he's in school, and he couldn't travel, and I want to be able to start this whole thing, and it's just like a perfect alignment. But if I'm not, creating content or busy in my business, I do love to play musical instruments. I play
Okay,
the
nice.
piano, the guitar, um, and I don't post about that. Maybe I should. Like I'm
Yeah,
just discovering. Like I think my personal brand is now evolving even more because before it was mostly like a lot of, like I said, educational stuff. And I usually tell this to my students or in a lot of past podcasts that I've been on. I'm like, if you don't look back in your old content and not cringe, are you even
yeah.
doing it
Are you
right?
growing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And a lot of that made me cringe, and I'm like, mm-mm. And look, that's just proof that you're evolving.
Right.
But yeah, I love. Well, it's still kind of like business like, but I love web design. I love lo-fi music. I love like a cute charcuterie board and like
Nice. Yeah.
Aperol spritz, and yeah, just all of the things. I think like I don't know if you remember this audio back then, but it was like. The audacity, I forgot, but it's just like a gay audio of like
Oh
a
yeah.
person who's gay. Like I can do it all. Like
Yeah.
today upholstery, tomorrow fixing wigs or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, all the things really.
Just all the things.
Name
What do you
it.
do?
Yeah.
What's like your definition of like a self-care day? Like what would you like are you
Ooh.
is it just those things like the music, like the like what do
Oh,
you
definitely a lot more than that. I listened to your self care podcast the other day,
yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, that really made me look back at like like all the things that I like to do. But yeah, mani pedi is on the
Yeah,
list.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
Massagist, please, yes.
Sure.
Um, I don't
And we
really
all love
splurge
those
on
things.
myself
Yeah.
anymore. I know I don't really splurge on
Yeah.
myself anymore. I don't really shop around anymore. Like,
Well,
if
I mean, that's
anything.
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like the normal like self care, like take yourself, buy something cute or like whatever. I
Yeah.
just like binge Schitt's Creek again because I'm now in a different mindset. Like
I
before, it
love
was
them.
like 2019. Like I feel like 2020 rewired everybody's brains. So then
Sure.
I was like, let me
Absolutely.
rewatch Schitt's Creek again. So now I'm binging it.
Schitt's
Yeah.
Creek is like what got me through COVID. Let me just tell you that.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
I
Season 6 wrecked me though.
I'm pretty sure I watched the entire series like 4 times because like it was
I
that
mean,
was
who
like
hasn't?
I
Who
know
hasn't?
it's like the comfort show you just like put on in the background because it's just
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Um, that's awesome. So, kind of to just like wrap up like my final question for you, just
Mhm.
I want you to just kind of tell everybody this is how I wrap up every episode is the whole podcast is based off of mile 17, which was just a point in the marathon where it was really tough for me. I felt like I had nothing else to run for. I had already seen my family, I'd already seen my partner, like I'd seen all my friends, and I still realized I had what is that, like 9 miles left to go. And it was terrible, it was tough, but I had to just like dig deep. And find the, something within me just to keep going. So that's where I got the metaphor for mile 17 to make the show, make the podcast.
I love that.
So what's a point in your life? It could be, week, decade, month, year, whatever, that you just like felt like you had to just like dig deeper, just like get yourself to the other side, and that you can look back on and like you felt just like so much growth from what you went through.
Ooh, that's a tough one. But I love mile 17, by the way. When they say you run with your heart in the last few miles, because I think that's true. I've never done a full, I've done a half only. And I
You do
think
it
that was
full.
true for like mile 11 for me, if I were
Yeah.
to name mine.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think like that mile 17 moment for me was coming out to my mom.
Hmm.
My dad passed away when I was 17, so it's just my mom this entire
Sure.
time. Um, and the acceptance that I've gotten from her, I didn't know that it was going to mean so much, and that it was going to bleed into all the other aspects of my life. Like, I came out to her when I'm already married,
Yeah.
when I already
Oh,
live with my husband in our house,
wow. Okay.
and she was forced to live with us during the pandemic because my sister, she lives with my brother and my sister and my brother-in-law, but she had to move because everybody got sick, so I had to pick her up and she lived with us for a little bit. But just seeing how beautiful the acceptance can do in one person's life, and how that one person, aka me, can share that sort of like gift, and gift myself and other people with that same acceptance, has been just like super life changing. Like, the ripple effect is real. And so when I thought that, like hiding and building this persona that's outside of what they know, that's, something that's acceptable, and then what I feel is unacceptable, and being able to combine everything and not hide it anymore, has truly been an eye-opening moment for me. And I feel like a true mile 17 moment for me is that, for sure.
Wow. That hits home, honestly, for me. I'm so glad that you were able to, one, tell your mom, and two, to have that response from her and just feel that support and love. 'Cause I think that's all of our fear, when, that nobody else understands unless they've had to go through the journey of coming out in
Mm,
whatever way.
yeah.
Is That was my biggest fear. Not a single soul in my life knew until I was 24. And that's a long
Oh,
time, to like to hold something like
yeah.
that. And like when you finally start, for me anyway, like I slowly started telling people. And my parents were the ones that I think scared most to tell. But
Yeah.
just like you're saying, like it was, they since then have been so gracious. And just
Yeah.
knowing that I have that acceptance, like it's huge. So
Hmm.
I'm that's amazing for you. Like that is not easy to overcome, and it's not easy to like finally make that step to tell them.
Yeah.
Like I literally sent my parents a text message because I couldn't handle, like I did not want to see the
Yeah,
initial
in person.
response.
Yep.
I like
Yep.
sent a text message and I just said, granted, also didn't live in the same town as them, but I texted them and
Yeah. Yeah.
said, I was like, so this is what's going on. Like when you
Mhm.
want to call me, just call me. And
Yeah.
they both called me like pretty much
Oh,
immediately. Yeah.
Colton.
Um,
Oh, my
yeah.
heart. Yeah. Did you
It's
delete the text too? You're like, nope, I don't want to see the response. Because that's something I would do.
I'm gonna text you then block you.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad I'm not so avoidant anymore. Like, there are some things in life that I'm like, mm-mm, don't want to deal with it, don't want to see it. But life is so damn short. And like, to just add to that, like, I feel like, I don't know if you feel like this too, but I feel like it's not like coming out is a process that's not just a single event, but it's literally like a lifelong journey of discovery and,
It is.
self acceptance. And so there are moments where I really just have to look back at that, and how it held me back so much in life. I wouldn't be like literally putting myself out there right now if I was scared,
Right.
if I was hiding this from my mom who could listen to this,
Right.
or
Right.
my brother for the longest time, who, well, we're now in really, really good terms. For
Yeah.
the longest time, I felt like he was just so distant from me, or anybody, because I was so scared of what people might say. But I'm like,
Yeah.
not worth it.
No, and it is a lifelong journey. Like when you grow up hiding something like that, like something I struggle with that I'm trying to work through is even like just knowing who I am, because it's like if I feel like at times I'm like I hid myself for so long and I
Mhm.
acted a certain way for so
Mhm.
long that sometimes I'm like I don't even know what I like. Like I don't even know like what,
Yeah,
I'm getting better. Like obviously,
yeah,
like I said, I'm working on it, but like when especially when I first like came out, like I almost felt like a fake. Like I had like been wearing this mask for so long that like now that I have like told the world that I'm like, do I don't even know, have I been dressing this way because that's how I was supposed to dress? Like, have I been doing these things that I think I like to do just because
yeah.
that's what a straight guy would do? Like, and so like that's something that I've really battled with. It's like what, is just like I think it's almost like an identity crisis because you're like,
The
how
duality of it all.
yeah, like how do I even fit into this world? Like as far as like, when I especially first came out, like I still didn't feel like I was like in with the gays. And
Yeah.
then but then now I'm like, now I'm like too gay to have like these other friends. Like I was just like in the middle. So I was like, where
Okay.
do I
I don't think you can ever be too gay,
well, you know what I
unless
mean.
you're Trinity, the duck.
I guess not
Oh
too
my
gay.
gosh.
Now
Yeah,
now that everybody knew, I just didn't I didn't
yeah.
fit on either end of the spectrum that it was like
No, I
that's been
see you.
yeah.
I hear you on that. I hear you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jumer, this has been awesome. I'm so
Oh, and
thankful
thank you.
that you were
Thank you.
willing to just like share your story, your knowledge.
Absolutely.
I will most definitely in the show notes put how everybody can find you on Instagram. That's like your biggest platform is Instagram, right? Are you anywhere else,
Yeah.
or it's Instagram your thing?
I'm on Instagram a whole lot. And my website is the same. It's JUMER ADALIN.
Okay, and your
Yeah.
tell everybody what your handle is for Instagram.
Oh, it's JUMER ADALIN, JUMERADILIN. And my
Okay.
website is jumeradalin.com.
Perfect. Again, I will attach all of that in the show notes. Your story is amazing. I think everybody should go out there, follow Jumer. His content is awesome. And if you're a nurse out there listening to this and you are thinking of, starting into the content and getting into this content creation world, like Jumer's definitely your guy. So
Thank you,
thank you
Colton.
so much, Jumer. This was awesome.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.